Variety magazine just published a devastating exposé about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's crumbling Netflix relationship. And before you dismiss this as another tabloid hit piece, you need to understand something. This is not the Daily Mail. This is not a British newspaper with an alleged grudge. This is Variety, the publication that has been Hollywood's Bible since the industry began. When Variety turns on you, Hollywood has officially called time. I cannot stress this enough. 6 insiders spoke on the record to one of Variety's most senior reporters. 6 people with direct knowledge of what happens behind closed doors when Harry and Meghan walk into a meeting. And what they described paints a picture that should make anyone reconsider everything they thought they knew about this couple's professional reputation.
So they're taking this very seriously. In a letter to Variety, says this assertion, quote, seems calculated to play into the misogynistic characterization of her bossing her husband around.
Meghan's lawyers immediately fired back, accusing the publication of playing into misogynistic characterizations. Harry himself reportedly attests that the claims are categorically false. But here is the thing that makes this situation different from every other time the Sussexes have cried foul. Variety published anyway. They received formal legal letters, reviewed them, and decided the reporting was solid enough to stand behind. That alone tells you everything about where we are in this story. The specific allegations are brutal. We are talking about claims that Ted Sarandos, arguably the most powerful man in streaming entertainment, allegedly will not take phone calls with Meghan unless a lawyer is present. We are talking about Netflix sitting on more than $10 million worth of unsold as-ever products that they eventually started giving away for free on card tables in their office buildings. We are talking about a company that paid somewhere between $60 and $100 million for content that never materialized into anything beyond recycled grievances about royal life. This is the beginning of the end of their Hollywood dream, and the receipts are piling up faster than anyone could have predicted. The Netflix partnership began in September 2020 with all the fanfare you would expect when a streaming giant signs actual royalty to an exclusive deal. The reported figures varied wildly, from 30 million to north of 100 million, but Variety sources pegged the actual number at roughly $60 million. At the time, this seemed like a smart bet for Netflix. Harry and Meghan had just made their dramatic exit from royal life. The world was locked down during the pandemic, and everyone wanted to know what really happened behind palace walls. Ted Sarandos personally swooped in to sign them after outmaneuvering competitors like Disney, Apple, Warner Brothers Discovery, and NBC Universal. David Zaslav, the chief executive of Warner Brothers Discovery, was reportedly especially keen to land the deal, but Sarandos won, and for a while, it looked like Netflix had secured the ultimate get. The streaming giant was clamoring for one asset in particular. They wanted a documentary series featuring never-before-seen footage of Meghan and Harry's Great British Escape, including video of the two on the commercial jet that delivered them to California. This was supposed to be the crown jewel of their content slate, the insider view that nobody else could offer. Meghan cultivated a personal relationship with Sarandos that extended beyond business. She took him to a Beyoncé concert. The suggestion in Hollywood circles was that she used their shared experience as part of mixed-race couples, since Sarandos' wife Nicole Levant is black. The families socialized frequently as neighbors in the Star Haven of Montecito. By all accounts, Meghan had positioned herself perfectly within Netflix's power structure. But according to Variety's reporting, the mood in the building has shifted dramatically. A Netflix insider told the publication directly that the prevailing sentiment is simple: they are done. The Sussexes' perceived pattern of selling repackaged versions of the same story about their exit from royal life has exhausted Netflix. Their partnership may continue to taper off, and with it will go Meghan and Harry's remaining show business lifeline. That is not speculation from anonymous internet commentators. That is a Netflix insider speaking to the entertainment industry's paper of record. The fairy tale is over. The first major crack appeared earlier than most people realize. In March 2021, just months after signing their massive Netflix deal, Harry and Meghan sat down with Oprah Winfrey for that blockbuster primetime interview that delivered 17 million viewers to CBS. While nobody at Netflix suggested the Sussexes violated any terms of their agreement, which did allow them to engage in projects in other arenas, many at the streamer were annoyed by the lack of communication. Sources told Variety that Netflix only discovered at the last minute that the Sussexes would sit with Winfrey and share intimate, headline-grabbing details of their lives. The company had invested tens of millions of dollars expecting exclusive access to Harry and Meghan's story, and suddenly the couple was giving away their most valuable content to a broadcast network for free. A Sussex spokesperson claims it is categorically false that Netflix was unaware of the Winfrey pre-interview. But here is where it gets interesting. The pattern of blindsiding their own partners was apparently just beginning. Sources say Meghan downplayed the book auction for Harry's memoir Spare, telling Sarandos that any publication would be far in the future if it happened at all. Then in 2021, Netflix felt blindsided again with news that Penguin Random House was indeed publishing the memoir and planned to do so during Netflix's rollout for the Harry and Meghan documentary series. Two sources told Variety that Sarandos learned about the memoir's timing during a chance encounter with a Penguin executive. A Netflix insider disputes this, claiming the co-CEO never met anyone at the publishing house regarding the book, but the damage was done. Netflix scrambled to air the Harry and Meghan documentary in its entirety before Spare hit shelves. The streaming giant had expected exclusive access to their story, and instead found themselves competing with their own talent's side projects. The Spare memoir became the fastest-selling nonfiction book of all time. Harry earned a reported $40 million from that deal alone. Meanwhile, Netflix was left holding content that now felt like yesterday's news, the opening act before the main event that someone else was selling. During post-production on the documentary, two sources say Meghan appealed to director Liz Garbus to remove elements from the final cut, claiming select interviews and footage would be upsetting to the royal family, especially given that Queen Elizabeth II had died 2 months prior to the series' debut. But internally at Netflix, sources say the feeling among senior executives was entirely different. They suspected the couple's true intention with the request was to ensure Harry's upcoming memoir would contain exclusive news and insight that would satisfy his publisher. Meghan was allegedly trying to protect the book's commercial value at Netflix's expense. Netflix leadership encouraged Garbus to conduct one final interview with the couple to ensure that events discussed in Harry's book would also be covered in the series. The company wanted to maximize the value of their investment, even if it meant pushing back against their talent's wishes. They were strongly advised to deliver Harry and Meghan in a way that justified the tens of millions spent. The trust was fracturing before the documentary even aired. Here is where the Variety report gets genuinely uncomfortable. Multiple insiders described meeting room behavior that matches what body language experts and casual viewers have observed for years, but hearing it confirmed by people who were actually in the room changes everything. Insiders say that Meghan has long conveyed that Hollywood is her domain. In virtual and in-person meetings with partners, she tends to talk over or recast Prince Harry's thoughts, sometimes while he is mid-sentence, sources say. The telling detail that multiple sources confirmed is that this behavior is usually preceded by a touch to the arm or thigh. Read that description again. This is not tabloid speculation about body language captured in photographs. This is what people who sat across from Harry and Meghan in business meetings observed repeatedly. The touch, then the interruption, then the recasting of whatever Harry was trying to say. Meghan's lawyer fired back aggressively at this characterization. In a letter to Variety, attorney Michael Kump said this assertion seems calculated to play into the misogynistic characterization of her bossing her husband around. Prince Harry personally attests that this is categorically false. But the denials do not explain why 3 separate sources would describe the exact same pattern of behavior with the exact same physical tells. These are not royal watchers analyzing press photos. These are entertainment industry professionals who watched it happen in real time during actual business meetings. The meeting behavior allegations extend beyond the interruptions. According to 3 sources, Meghan was known to disappear for long periods during Zoom calls. Later, Netflix teams like the marketing department would be informed that her absence was due to her being offended by something that was said. Her lawyer's defense is that Meghan works from home as the mother of young children age 4 and 6 and often encounters, as many parents who work from home do, children who enter the space unexpectedly during a meeting. The lawyer adds that Meghan is conscious of shielding her team from the distraction of children, and that nearly all professionals can attest to needing to turn off the audio or camera during a virtual meeting at some point. That explanation might cover a few minutes here and there. It does not explain long periods of absence that Netflix staff interpreted as Meghan being offended. It does not explain why multiple teams across the company formed the same impression independently. This matches years of body language observations that viewers have noted publicly, but it also matches something else. It matches what former palace staff allegedly experienced. It matches the Vanity Fair reporting about employees ending up in rehab after working with Meghan. It matches the Hollywood Reporter stories about why staff kept leaving Archewell. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. The entertainment industry did not need Variety to tell them something was wrong with the Sussex partnership. The warning started publicly when Spotify's head of talk strategy, Bill Simmons, famously called the couple grifters on his podcast. That label stuck in ways that no amount of crisis management could undo. Then came the brutal assessment from Jeremy Zimmer, the then CEO of UTA, one of the most powerful talent agencies in Hollywood. His quote should have ended any debate about Meghan's viability as a content creator. Turns out Meghan Markle was not a great audio talent, or necessarily any type of talent. That is not a tabloid headline. That is the head of a major talent agency saying publicly what others in the industry were whispering privately. When someone at Zimmer's level says something like that on the record, it signals to everyone else that it is safe to share their own experiences. A-list directors and talent became hesitant to work with the pair, according to Variety's reporting. Perceptions were shifting across the industry thanks to comments like Simmons's and Zimmer's. The Sussex brand went from hot commodity to professional liability in what felt like overnight. When Meghan signed with WME and Ari Emanuel in 2023, it seemed like a potential reset. Emanuel runs one of the most powerful agencies in entertainment, and landing representation with him should have opened doors. But within 3 months of Meghan becoming a client, key members of the team assembled to represent her dropped off the account, including Emanuel himself. 3 months. That is how long it took for one of the most aggressive talent representatives in Hollywood to step back from actively working on her career. Emanuel did not release a public statement calling her difficult or talentless. He simply moved on, which in Hollywood often speaks louder than any press release. 4 sources told Variety that Archwell specifically expressed interest in numerous documentaries. No deals materialized. Sales agents and filmmakers on the ground were not interested in any Archwell investment. The Sussex name, which was supposed to guarantee interest and investment, had become a deal breaker rather than a deal maker. The Sussexes have not produced a single scripted project in their nearly 6 years at Netflix. Scripted projects, including the animated series Pearl, were scrapped entirely. The company that was supposed to build an entertainment empire has produced nothing but documentaries about themselves and a lifestyle show that Netflix is now divested from. Hollywood has delivered its verdict, and no amount of legal letters can change it. The With Love Meghan lifestyle show was supposed to demonstrate that Meghan could create content beyond royal drama. Instead, it became another case study in the gap between Sussex expectations and commercial reality. Netflix invested in Meghan's As Ever consumer products brand as part of the partnership. The streaming giant footed the bill to help build the venture, expecting that the show would drive sales and create a new revenue stream. What actually happened was the opposite. Last August, a second set of episodes with Love Meghan performed dismally compared with the first round. The ratings decline was steep enough that Netflix found itself sitting on a surplus of As Ever products, including tea and baking mixes, totaling more than $10 million in value. Think about that number for a moment. $10 million worth of inventory that Netflix could not move. The solution? The company started giving inventory to employees for free, putting the goods on card tables in various office buildings. That is not a normal business practice. That is a company trying to write off a loss without publicly acknowledging the scale of the failure. An Archwell spokesperson attempted to normalize this by saying giveaways from sample closets are standard practice at studios. That may be technically true for small promotional items, but $10 million worth of product being distributed on card tables suggests something far more major went wrong. A Sussex spokesperson claims that With Love Meghan will continue as seasonal specials, but Variety's reporting indicates the show was not renewed in full. The distinction matters. A seasonal special is not a series order. It is a way to quietly wind down a failed project while maintaining the public appearance of ongoing partnership. The writing was on the wall long before the official announcement. 2 sources say the divestment had been in the works since last fall. That is when Meghan hired independent brand consultant and creative director Devin Pedowder, who had worked with Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop. Multiple sources interpreted this hire as a signal that Netflix had thrown in the towel on Meghan's venture. Netflix had been planning to divest since autumn of last year. The public announcement was just catching up to a decision made months earlier behind closed doors. The legal response from Meghan's camp follows a familiar playbook. When facts are unflattering, pivot to accusations of bias. Her lawyer's letter to Variety characterized the reporting as calculated to play into misogynistic characterizations of her bossing her husband around. This defense might have worked 5 years ago, when most of the negative coverage came from British tabloids that Meghan could credibly accuse of prejudice. But the accusers this time are not royal correspondents or palace insiders. These sources are Netflix executives, Hollywood agents, entertainment industry professionals who work in what Meghan herself calls her domain. Variety is not the Daily Mail. Variety is not even remotely conservative or traditionally associated with criticism of progressive figures. This is the publication that Hollywood reads to understand itself, that entertainment professionals trust for industry news. When Variety publishes something, it carries weight that tabloid coverage simply does not. Prince Harry's personal attestation that the meeting behavior claims are categorically false raises its own questions. How would Harry know what executives observed and discussed among themselves after meetings concluded? He can attest to his own experience, but he cannot attest to what Netflix staff perceived and later reported to their colleagues. The pattern of crying sexism or racism when confronted with criticism has diminishing returns. It worked during the Oprah interview because the claims were shocking and difficult to verify. It worked less well during the Spotify collapse because Bill Simmons did not exactly fit the profile of someone with an anti-Sussex agenda. And it is not working now because the sources are Hollywood insiders who have no apparent motive to fabricate complaints about meeting behavior. Variety received formal legal letters before publication and published anyway. That decision tells you everything about how confident the magazine's editors were in their sourcing and their legal position. Publications do not go to print on shaky reporting when lawyers are already involved. The cumulative picture emerging from this reporting is damning. Ted Sarandos and Chief Content Officer Bella Bajaria are reportedly fed up with the Sussex partnership, despite the carefully worded official denials. 3 insiders specifically named Sarandos as having lost patience, with 2 sources claiming he recently said he would not sit for a call with the Duchess unless a lawyer was present on the line. The sources were unclear if Sarandos was serious or joking. But even as a joke, that comment reveals an extraordinary level of frustration. This is the same executive who personally courted the Sussexes, attended Beyoncé concerts with Meghan, and socialized with the couple as Montecito neighbors. For him to even joke about needing legal protection during phone calls suggests the personal relationship has soured alongside the professional one. Netflix officially denies that Sarandos made the comment and disputes that he and Bajaria have lost faith in the couple. Bajaria provided a statement calling Archwell a thoughtful and collaborative partner, saying she has really enjoyed working with Harry and Meghan. But that statement reads like standard corporate damage control, the kind of language companies use when they cannot openly criticize talent they are still technically in business with. The substance of Variety's reporting paints an entirely different picture. Poor communications, content that never materialized, a lifestyle brand nobody wanted, a production partnership that yielded exactly 0 scripted projects in nearly 6 years, and meeting behavior that left executives feeling like they needed lawyers present just to have a conversation. When Variety concludes that the Sussexes' remaining show business lifeline may continue to taper off, they are putting in print what the rest of Hollywood already knows. The dream Meghan and Harry had of building an entertainment empire has collapsed under the weight of their own behavior and broken promises. After half a decade of inconsistent shows, strategic shifts, false starts, and a diminished hold on the popular imagination, the question Variety poses is whether the Sussexes are really living the Hollywood dream they imagined. The answer is obvious to everyone except perhaps Harry and Meghan themselves. This is not just another bad news cycle that will blow over. This is the entertainment industry's official verdict, published in its paper of record, sourced by people who actually worked with the couple. When Variety, Vanity Fair, and The Hollywood Reporter have all turned on you, when major agency heads publicly question whether you have any talent at all, when even your friends at Netflix are reportedly demanding lawyers present for phone calls, you are finished in that town. The couple built their post-royal identity on the premise that the British media and the palace were unfairly persecuting them. Every criticism was framed as racism, sexism, or institutional malice. That narrative required Americans, and especially Hollywood, to embrace them as victims who deserve support and success. But Hollywood did embrace them. Netflix gave them $60 million. Spotify gave them a reported $20 million podcast deal. WME offered representation through its most powerful agent. They got every opportunity that money and fame could buy, and they squandered all of it through behavior that made industry professionals unwilling to work with them. You can blame the media, you can cry racism, you can hire lawyers to send threatening letters, but eventually your behavior speaks louder than your press releases. Eventually people compare notes and realize their experiences were not isolated incidents. Eventually someone with nothing to gain from the Sussexes' downfall decides to tell Variety what actually happens in those meeting rooms. The entertainment industry gave Harry and Meghan every chance to succeed. They failed not because of prejudice or bad luck, but because of choices they made repeatedly when they thought no one was paying attention. Now everyone is paying attention, and the receipts are in print. The comment section is yours. Tell me where you stand, and subscribe for the next update.